Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to enter and edit and delete text and numeric data. So this is a beginner video for Excel. Before we get into that, go to excelvbasequel.com. You can watch over 20 hours of free videos, everything from the basics of Excel all the way to the advanced. It'll teach you everything you need to know. Put your email in here and sign up to be emailed when free videos go up. Okay, let's get started. So let's go to Excel, go to Start, and find your Microsoft Excel. I double click it, and now we get our blank workbook. In the previous video, the first video on Excel, I talked about what this is. Here's the you should watch that. If you're not familiar with this interface, go watch the first video. So in this video, what we're going to do is enter some data in the spreadsheet. Remember, the spreadsheet is this area here, made up of columns starting at A and going out thousands of columns, and rows that are numbered from 1 all the way down to 1,000,000. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to enter and edit and delete data that's text and numeric. So let's build something that you might build in the real world. Let's build a list of customers. So I'm going to put some columns here. One's going to be called name, another one's going to be called age, another one will be called purchase price, and another one will be called street. Let's say city and street and zip code. So this is a real world example. Let's say you had some customers and you want to enter things. So what did I do here? Well, when I entered all these bits of data, I just clicked on the cell and started typing. So if I want to enter my first name here, I just click on the cell A2 and I just start typing. So I'll type Joe. Another way you could enter data is by going up here to the formula bar. You see a little pop-up comes up and it says formula bar. You could go in here after you click on the cell and type in data. So in the age column, I'm going to type in 45. Okay. Now notice what happened here. When I typed in Joe, that's considered text. And by default, text goes to the left side of the cell. So notice Joe is left aligned. This is called the alignment of the text is left. It's on the left side of the cell. Whereas if you enter numbers, numeric data, it goes to the right side of the cell. Those are just default settings in Excel that you should be aware of. I'll show you how to change the alignment of the cells in a little bit. So we saw that one way to enter data is to simply click on a cell and start typing. Or you could go to the formula bar and type something in. Another way is to click on the cell and actually, once you're there, then double click on it, and you'll see that now you have a cursor that's blinking in the cell. And you could type your data in here. So for the purchase price, I'm going to put in 12.99. And notice again, because I entered data that was numeric, it's aligned on the right side of the cell. Okay, so there's three ways to really enter data. One is by just clicking on the cell and start typing, and I could do that here again. I'll change the name. If I want to edit this name, I can just click on the cell and start typing Mike. So that's one way to enter data. Another way is, again, go to the formula bar and you could change this to 48. Another way again is to double click on the cell and you get a cursor, and then you could change your data that way. So what's the best way? Most people just click on things and start typing because that's the fastest way. You don't have to go to the formula bar and you don't have to double click on the cell. So I'd recommend when you're entering data, just click on the cell and start typing. So if I just click on this cell, I could type a city of New York. Now, do you have to click on the cell? Can you get to the cell another way? Sure. You can get to the cell by using your arrow keys. So now I'm not using I'm not clicking on it. I'm actually using the arrow keys. You could see where my cursor is over here, but I'm using the arrow keys to move the activated cell, which is the highlighted box that you see here, the highlighted borders, I'm using my arrow keys to move and maneuver across Excel. And I'll put a video up on more ways to maneuver, but what you need to know is that you could either click on a cell like this and just click on it with your mouse and start typing, or you can use arrow keys to get to the cell you want. And there's one more way. You could go back to this name box and you could type in the address of the cell. So if I wanted to type in a street address, which is here in column E, row 2, I would type in E2 up here. That's another way to get to the cell. And once you're in the cell again, you could just start typing. So I'm going to type in the street, Main Street. Now, for the zip code, let's type in a zip code. So let's type in 999555. And notice it's numeric, so it's aligned to the right of the cell. And numeric data is aligned to the right. But what happens when we have a zip code that begins with a 0, like 000345? So that's a zip code, maybe. There are zip codes, I believe, that begins with 0, I'm pretty certain. So look at what happens. We have a problem here because we entered a zip code, a valid zip code, but it took away the leading zeros. Well, that's because when you store numeric data, it strips the leading zeros, and to get around that, what you could do is do a couple things. You can go into the formula bar, or actually you don't even have to. You could just do something like this, an apostrophe and then 000345. And look what happens. So now it considers that as text. But that's going to keep your leading zeros there. And what you can do then is you can right click on the cell and you could go Format Cells. And if you change this to text, you click OK, notice what happens. You get an error message here that says the number in this cell is preceded by an apostrophe. What you can do there is say convert to number, and it goes back to 345. But I guess what I'm trying to say is when you want leading zeros, you can right click on the cell and just go to Format Cells and go to text, or let's see, text. And it will change it to, it will change that number from 345 on the right to the left, but you want the leading zero, so you have to put in this apostrophe 000, and that's going to give you this little green thing in the corner, but you don't need to worry about that. It says, this error here, but you don't need to really care about that because you get what you want. You have your zip code that's formatted the way you want. Okay, so now we just learned about entering data, and the text is aligned to the left, and there's 3 ways, by clicking on it and just start typing, the formula bar and the name box. When you enter numeric data, it's aligned on the right side of the cell like this. If you want to put leading zeros in, if you have numbers, use this little apostrophe here. Okay, so now let me go change this street to Main Street 12345. And look what happened. So I changed this street name, to Main Street 12345, but it's not appearing in the column because it's sort of cut off by this other column. So how do you increase the size of your column here? Well, you could do 2 things. You could see this little line here between column E and column F. When you hover over it, you get this little sort of crosshairs, and you could then click the crosshairs, and you could drag your mouse to expand the width, and now the column became much larger, and it's able to see, you're able to see that street. So you could click this crosshair and you could expand or contract this column. That's one way you could do it. Another way you could do it is to simply double click, instead of dragging it, just double click that line, and it automatically expands to the just a little bit more than the amount that you need. It's called the auto width. It automatically expands to the size that you need. So that's really the fastest way, is to just double click on this line here. Okay. One other way you can do it, I'm just showing you some things, is that you can click on the column name, the column letter here. So if you click on the column up here at E, notice that little arrow that says down. If you click on that, it'll highlight the entire column. So now you have a highlighted column here. And you could also change the width by right clicking and going down to column width. And you could set your width here to a larger number, like 50, and it expands it. So you could set a width like that. But the best way to do it, like I said before, is to simply double click on these lines here. Now what if you had a situation where a bunch of columns were that same way? So all the data was being cut off because the columns were not big enough. Well, then you could do all those things that we just did. You can highlight all the columns, and you could drag a width of a column, and it'll make all the other columns that same width. So see what it did? I just dragged that column, and it made all these other columns, because they were highlighted, it made them the same width. If I want to undo that, let's say I don't like this, so I want to go back to what it was, I can click this little undo column width, this little arrow here that sort of indicates you're going backwards, and that'll take you back to your previous state. So I didn't like that because it made every column too big. It made I don't need the age column to be that big, you know. The other thing you can do, if you don't want to drag a single column to make all the other columns that big, is to set the column width like we did before with this column width. But again, it's going to set all the columns. If I put 40 in here, it makes all the columns 40, and I don't like that either. So I'm going to undo that again by going up here into undo column. And now we're back to the original thing. So what I want is for all the columns to be sized just right. And how to do that is you highlight all the columns and you just click on any one of these lines in between the columns. And that's going to automatically make every column exactly the right size where nothing is cut off. So we see that's a real quick way to, when you have things that are data that is cut off because the column's not wide enough, you just simply double click on these lines. And if you have multiple columns like that, highlight all the columns, double click, and it'll expand the columns into the proper width. Okay, so now we see how we could enter data like numeric and text data. Let's also enter a date here. So I'll do date of purchase. This will be a column, date of purchase. And again, I'm going to double click this line so that the column is big enough. And when you go to enter dates, a couple things. So you could just enter the month and then the dash year. So if the date of purchase was January 1st, I could enter 1 and then a / actually 1. And if I do that and I press enter, so I typed in 1 / 1 and then I press enter, and you can see it goes to 1 January. And if I click on the cell up here in the formula bar, you see it says 1/1/2011. So what it did is it automatically defaults to the current year. If I enter 5/5 with no year, so I'm not entering a year for my date, it says May 5th, and it automatically puts in the default value for the year is the current year. If you want to enter a year, say you want 5/5 of 1987, you have to enter it like that. So 5/5/1987. You could also enter dates like this. You could do 5-5-87. So there's a bunch of ways to enter dates. You could simply enter a day, a month and a day like this, 5/5, or you could enter 5/5/1987, or you could enter 5-5-87, or you could enter this. You could enter 5-May-87. And I think there's even more ways to enter dates, but we don't need to really get into that. It's really, you just need to know, a couple of the ways to enter dates. Okay, so now you have your date is entered into the cell. What about time? What about time? So let's do time of purchase. Let's put a header in here called time of purchase, and then I'll double click it to make the width expand. And when you enter time, you could do things like this. So you could enter 10p, and that means it's 10 p.m. Or you could enter 10 instead of just p. You could enter 10 p.m. and that means a time of 10 p.m. And notice here in the formula bar, there's even an hour, and followed by the minutes, followed by the seconds here. So that's something to notice too. You can put in hours and minutes and seconds. So we could even do something like this: 10:45:12 space p.m. So what that does is allows us to enter minutes and seconds into data that is time. But how come it isn't showing here? It's not showing because we don't have this cell formatted to show that. It's in the formula bar, but the cell doesn't show it. So how do we get it to show in the cell? Well, you just right click on the cell and you go to Format Cells, and what pops up is a box here that says Format Cells at the top, and this allows you to format your cells, the data in your cells, in many different ways. What you should notice though is that when this box pops up, that time is stored as a number. Okay, and that's critical because really there's only a couple things in Excel you have to worry about: text or numbers. So what is text? I'm going to close this for a second, but text is letters or anything that includes letters and numbers, but it isn't a number. Like Mike 99, that's not a number, or 9 Mike or something like that. I mean, this is just text, right? A number is actually something you can add and subtract and divide and make a percentage or make it into a dollar amount. Those are things like this, right? But notice that time is also in Excel. Its data is considered a number, and also date. If I right click on this and I go to Format Cells, date is also considered a number. So Excel makes it pretty easy. It says there's text and there's numbers. Everything that is a date or a time or a number that you can add or subtract, those are going to be considered numbers. Everything else is text. So it's pretty simple. They're just numbers and text in Excel. Okay, so how do we make this cell over here? I'm going to close that. How do we make this cell here show the time? So I'll right click, I'll go to Format Cells, and now it gives you all these formats here, and you just select one that you want. I mean, there's a lot of different options here. Really, you're concerned with this, like hour, minute, seconds, AM, PM. If I click OK, so I want it to be a format like this, where it begins with an hour, and then it shows the minutes, and then it shows the seconds, and then it shows AM, PM. So I click OK, and now I have my hours, minutes, and seconds, which you see in the formula bar here. And if I want to make this date a different format, I could just right click that and go to Format Cells, and again I have things to choose from. I could go up here to date, and it'll show me a bunch of formats for dates. So I could select something that has Wednesday in it. Notice that when I click this format, it takes that value, May 5th, and it puts it as a sample up here. So May 5th, 1987 was a Tuesday. If you want to select that, you just select that and go down to OK, and now you get Tuesday, May 5th, 1987. If you want something else, go to Format Cells, and you could select all these other date formats like this. So I'll leave it at, I'll select that one. Okay, so now let me just enter some more data. I'm just going to be clicking on cells, and I'll enter Joe, I'll enter 89, I'll enter $56.87. I'll enter let's see, Miami. I'll enter First Street. I'll enter a zip code of 987654 and a purchase date of 9/9/1980, or let's do 2011. And let's do a time of purchase of 5 p.m. So notice what happened. This format for the date, all this data I entered here is okay. It has a name. It's not a problem. All this data is straightforward. This over here, though, the formats are not like these formats. So I entered 9/9/2011, but why doesn't it look like May 5th, 1987? Well, that's because I changed the format of this cell, remember, by doing this Format Cells here, and I changed the format of this cell by doing Format Cells here. So how do you make this cell and this cell those formats? Well, what you want to do is highlight the entire column, and then you want to right click, and then you want to go to Format Cell, because this will now make the entire column the format that you want. So if I click OK, let me move this box. I want to format the entire column as this type of format. So I click OK, and now notice that the format I want is for the entire column. So if I enter a date here like 6/7, now I'm getting the format I want. So it's easy to say, for this entire column, set the format to that or whatever. So all you have to do is highlight the column by clicking on the letter of the column here. And let me change this time column so that the formats are all the same. So I'm going to highlight the column by clicking on it up top, and I go to Format Cells, and I could go to time here because this is the category of what you want to format, and I could select this format, and I could click OK, and notice that what's going to happen is both of these values will now have that format. I'll click OK. And if I enter another value here, like 8p, then I get the format I want. So it's easy to get formats to make them all the same. You just highlight a column and go to right click and Format Cell. So let me enter. Okay, let me now delete. Let's talk about how do I delete this data. Let's say I want to delete it. So we saw how we can enter it by clicking on it and typing, or doing those two other ways, the formula bar, the name, or double clicking on it. And we saw how we could edit it by doing those same things. You just click on it and you start typing to edit it. But how do you delete it? To delete it, you just you can do a couple things. You can just click on it, and you could press the backspace key on your keyboard. So if I click on this cell and I press backspace, all that data goes away. And then I press enter. You have to press enter. Notice that if you press backspace, let me click on the cell and you press backspace, the data goes away. And you have to move out of that cell. You have to press enter or move your arrow keys or whatever. So it's real easy to delete data. You just, if I put in a date here, just click on it and click backspace on your keyboard. Or you can click on the cell and go to delete here, or actually clear contents. So you click on the cell and you can just go to clear contents, and it's going to clear the contents of the cell. Now let's say we have multiple rows of data. Let's say we have multiple columns of data. Let's say I want to delete this whole entire, all this data here that I just highlighted. Well, you can do a couple things. You can go here and you can highlight all the data you want to delete, and then you just right click on it and go to clear contents, and all your data is gone. You just deleted it. Let me bring that back, and I'll show you another way to do it. If you don't want to do that by highlighting it, so you highlight it, and how do you highlight? You just hold down your, you left click, and then you just drag your cursor wherever you want to go. So see, I'm dragging my cursor, and the highlighted range, this is called a range here. This highlighted box, it's called a range because there's multiple cells in this range. You know, this is a range that is two cells by 2 cells. There's 4 cells in this range here. So you could just click on a cell and then left click and drag your cursor, and you're going to be able to do this. Once you do that, if you want to delete data, you can just right click and go to clear contents. But another way is you can, let's say you want to delete this entire row of data, you can right click on or left click on the entire row. So now the entire row going all the way out, thousands and thousands of columns, is all highlighted. And again, you can right click and go to clear contents, and now all the data in that row is going to be cleared out. So that's how you would clear data out. Either just click on it and press the backspace, or highlight a range and do clear contents. Or if you want to delete an entire row or rows of data, you can always select more rows. You can just select a row by going over here, left clicking on the row number, and if you want more rows, just drag your cursor down, and you'll be able to select these rows to clear contents. Okay, so now we see how we could clear data. Okay, so now I entered my data here, but now look it doesn't look very good. The alignment is off. You know, some are aligned to the left and to the right, and I don't have really anything to make it look good. But let's do that. Okay, so what I want to do is format everything to be in the center of every cell. So I'm going to, I could select all these cells, and I could go up here, and on this home tab there's these center text, or align text to the right, or align text to the left. And you could also align text in the cell to be the top of the cell or the bottom. So I want to talk about this here. If I want everything to be centered, I just click on this center button. And now everything here is all centered in the middle of the cell. But notice what happens. If I enter data down here, it's centered to the left. So I have to sort of highlight this whole range by clicking on cell A1 and then dragging my cursor down. A faster way to do that is to simply click this corner cell here. And notice, if I click this corner cell where the upper left corner, all the cells are highlighted. Everything turns blue here. It's all highlighted. That means the entire worksheet, you know, because we're on worksheet sheet 1, the entire worksheet is now highlighted. And I can apply formats to this. If I do this, center, you might have to click it more than once, because the first time you click it, it didn't work. But the second time you click it, it does work. It's just a matter of the order in which you're clicking. It's an Excel feature that you have to click this. If it doesn't work the first time, it'll work the second time. So let's highlight all the cells in this worksheet and center them. So we do that by clicking this upper left and clicking the center. And like I said, if it didn't work the first time, it'll work the second time. So there it is. I clicked it again, and everything became centered. Okay, now I want to delete this piece of data, so I'm just going to click on it, click backspace. Now things are starting to look better. My columns are all, they have the right width. They're all centered. All the data is centered. But now, you know, I want to do a couple other things. I want to format this column to have look like it's a currency. So you can do that by highlighting the whole column, go to Format Cells, and in the number area, the number tab, you can click on currency and you could select a bunch of things here. You could select how many decimal places do you want for this purchase price column. Well, I want 2. And what symbol do you want to use? Do you want to use a $sign or all these other symbols? I'm going to choose $sign. And then how do you want your negative numbers to show? Do you want them to show with a negative sign in front, or red, or with parentheses? So you got to select this. I'm just going to leave it as a default and say if it's negative, it's going to have a negative out front. So I do that and I click OK. And now look what happened. Purchase price now has a $sign in front. And this might be weird, but if I ever have a negative purchase price, it'll show with a negative like that. If I would have selected the format that has a red, that makes the color red, if I click that, now it shows $12.99 and it's red. If I put a positive purchase price, $9.99, it's black. If I put a negative $9.99, oops, this whole thing had to be formatted. So I go to currency. So, oops. I clicked on numbers. I should have clicked on currency. So you do have to be a little careful here. If you click number instead of currency, then you're not going to get that $sign. So I click currency, and I'm going to go down here to red for negative numbers. Click OK. And now any negative number for purchase price, like $9.99, is now going to be red, whereas a positive one, like $7.99, is positive. So negative $9.99 turns red, positives turn black. If you don't want the red, highlight everything, go to Format Cells, highlight the column, go to Format Cells, and just have the first one, negative numbers with a negative sign. Click OK. And now you don't have the red. And if I want to delete this, I'm going to click on cell C3 and drag my cursor down so I select a range. This is called selecting a range because here's the range of cells, and then you just right click and go to Clear Contents. Okay, so things are starting to look good now. I have things with a $sign, with a negative. I have an age here. Let's say though that I want to be able to enter an age with decimal places. Because if I enter something now like 75, like 48.5, it'll show 48.5, but I want 2 decimal places. So how do you do that? Well, it's real easy. On this format, on this home tab, this gives you access to some of the things we were just playing with. So notice here this says number, right? And if you click on this, that box that we were just dealing with pops up. See this little thing down here, right here? This Format Cells number, that's exactly what we get when we right click and go to Format Cells. So up here on this Format tab, on this Home tab, that's why these tabs are so useful, because they give you quick access to things. Instead of right clicking on, highlighting this whole column and right clicking, you can just highlight the column and click this little button here, and you're going to get what you want. Or here's some defaults. If I go here and I click on a $sign, that now puts the $sign to the left and all the numbers to the right of the cell. That's because this is accounting. If you click on currency, it changes that. And all this is doing here, this drop-down list, general, number, currency, accounting, all that is doing is it's showing you general, number, currency, accounting, date, time, all these categories here. So this here, up here, is the category that you see here. And you can select different categories, and you're going to get access to the different format settings for these numbers and these columns. So that's why these tabs up top are pretty useful, because you can select a category here like general, and you could have this highlighted. Just highlight this column and go over here, change it from general to currency, and automatically you get that. So that's cool. Now if you want to add decimal places, again, go back to the home tab, and here in the number area you can just click this thing that says increase decimal, and this one decreases decimal. So if I click this once, here I have to click that cell and then increase the decimal here. If I click it more times, notice what's happening. All these decimals are coming in into view here, and that's by increasing the decimal here. Or if I want to decrease it, I could just click it here, and now I have what I had before. So that's a way to increase and decrease the decimal places that you want. If you want to do that for an entire row of data, just highlight our entire column of data. Click the column up top and go to Format Cells and go to whatever you want, number, decimals, currency, or numbers, currency, accounting, any category. It's going to have this decimal places here. And I just want for age, I want to have, let's say, 3 decimal places. And I'm going to click OK. And now I have my age with 3 decimal places. Cool. Notice here, if I have a really big purchase price, like 15,000, it automatically formats it to puts a comma in between the 15 and the rest of the zeros. So it formats it very nicely. But what if you have an age, let's say, I'm trying to think of something here. Let's say I just have a number in this cell, like 15,000. This is kind of a crazy example because no one lives to be 15,000 years, but I just want to show you how to add a comma, because over here, if I put in 15,000 and press enter, I get a comma, but over here I don't. So how do I get the comma? Well, you could highlight the whole column and right click, Format Cells, or you could just go here to this little button in the corner, and you could just check this box that says use 1000 separator, and that's going to put a comma in between any number that's greater than, it's going to put the appropriate commas in per 1,000 places. So that's how you change your decimals, change your commas if you want numbers. Again, let me clear this out. So I'm going to highlight this range here and go to clear contents. And now just one more thing. We saw that what we've been doing is highlighting entire columns and applying formats by highlighting the column up top, right clicking, or selecting multiple columns and right clicking and go to Format Cells, or equivalently to get to that Format Cells area, go here. Now I just want to show you that you can do the same thing with rows. Like I said before, you can highlight rows the same way. You click on the one and drag your cursor down to highlight rows. So in this case, I want to make this this table have headers that have bold font. So I'm going to highlight the entire row by clicking on one. I just go up here into the bold, and I just click B, stands for bold, and I click B. Notice that when I hover over it, it says bold CTRL plus B. That means Control B. So that's called a shortcut key. So I could click my mouse here, and now everything turned bold up here. But another way I can do it is by doing Control B. So on my keyboard, if I highlight this and press Control B again, it turns the bold off. So what you're doing with these buttons up here, if you click them once, it applies this format, bold. If you click it again, it takes it off. And you could either click it, or if it has a shortcut key, like bold has a shortcut key of Control B, you can do the same thing here on your keyboard. So if I press Control B, it turns bold on. If I highlight that row again and press Control B, it turns that bolding off. Now a lot of these things up here have shortcut keys, and just scroll over them and you'll see, like if you want to make things italic, you can highlight the row and press Control I, and now things are italic. And notice here it says Control I. If you don't want to make them italic, you want to take it off, you just highlight it. You can either press this button or press Control I again. So Control I, and now italic goes away. Same thing for underline. And there's all these other formats here: underline, double underline. If you want to underline things, you highlight the row and you press this U here, stands for underline. Notice the shortcut key is called Control U. So if I want to take these underlines off, I just highlight the row and press Control U and they go away. Okay, cool. Let's see. I'm trying to look for some other shortcut keys. I'm just hovering over things to look for shortcut keys. Two really common shortcut keys, or not two, but a bunch, are the ones we just went over: the bold, italic, and underline. Those are very common. So again, I'm just going to highlight this row, click Control B. It'll bold the whole row. But these are very frequently used procedures: cutting, copying, and pasting. And I could introduce them to you now because they're really easy. So let's say that I want to make a copy of this whole range here. All I have to do is select copy here. But I'm not going to do it because no one really uses these things to do the copy, cut, and paste. They use the shortcut keys. So to copy something, you press Control C. So I'm going to press Control C. And notice it sort of gets a border that is now it is activated, and it looks like it's moving, this border. And that's to show you that you have something that is selected. You have selected a range and you have activated it to be copied. Now you can select a cell. So I'm going to select this cell, A5, and I want to paste it. And to paste it, if you hover over it, it's Control V. So all you do is select a cell and then press Control V. And now you just copied this data up here, down here. And then to make this stop blinking, this border range, you press Escape. So you press Escape. So that's how you copy something. You highlight it if it's a big range. And highlighting again, if you can't highlight it, it's you select a cell and then you hold down your left mouse button and drag your cursor or your mouse. If you have a mouse pad or a mouse, you just drag your mouse and it'll allow you to select a range like this. You press Control C again, and then you select a cell where you want to paste it and you press Control V. And now I made another copy. And you press Escape. Notice I pressed Escape to get that to stop blinking. So let me clear all this data out, and that's how you copy something. I'm going to clear this out by doing Clear Contents. But how do we cut something? What does a cut mean? So copy, you saw, we just take this data and we make a copy and put it somewhere else. A cut is when you cut something, instead of pressing Control C, you want to press Control X. So you press Control X. It does the same thing. It gets the moving border. You press a cell, and now you press Control V, and you just cut, meaning you're not copying it. You're actually cutting it out of one place in the worksheet and putting it in another place. So that's these three buttons up here. They're very useful. And Control C is what you use to copy. Control V is what you use to paste. And Control X is what you use to cut. So you want to practice that. These are very common. Let me do this again. I'm going to highlight the entire range by selecting this cell H6 and holding down my left key on my mouse and dragging it over to select the range. I press Control and I press X. I go up to A1. I press Control V. and that's how you cut something. To copy it, you press Control C and Control V. So and what you need to press is up here in these little brackets. It says Control X. Okay. One more thing before we finish is if you want to just cut a single cell, you can do the same thing. You just do cut or copy. You just do Control C and then Control V, and that copies New York. Let me delete that by clicking on the cell and clicking my backspace, and now I'll cut it. I'll do Control X and then Control V, and that cuts it. One other thing, well, actually no, we'll stop here. In the next video, I'll show you some more ways to maneuver around the worksheets using shortcut keys to maneuver around, and also how to do things like this. How to, if you have data and you want to drag this New York back to where it was, you can get this crosshairs and you could drag it back up. So I'll go into that in the next video. But in this video, what did we learn? Well, we learned a lot. We learned how to enter text, the ways we can do it. Just click on a cell to start typing, use the formula bar, or double click a cell and you'll get a cursor like that, and then you could enter data. If you want to move with this cursor, I didn't say this, but use your arrow keys and you can move over and across, or you could just click with your mouse. We learned how to enter numbers. We learned how to deal with leading zeros like this. We learned how to enter dates and times, and how to make things bold and italic and underline, and how to format all this stuff by highlighting columns or multiple columns and using these buttons up here, or this format pop out up here. So I hope this helps. It gives you an idea of how to enter data and the different types of data. In the next video, I'll show you how to move data around a worksheet instead of doing cut, copy, paste, about how dragging things are useful, and also how to shortcut keys, how to get from this cell to this cell really fast instead of clicking on it. Okay, so that's it for this video. Just a reminder, go back to excelvbasequel.com. There's tons of hours of video. If you want to become real proficient in Excel, go to Excel VBA SQL, watch all the videos, and put your email in here, and we'll send you videos when they go up. It's all free. Thanks. Bye.